Okay, this is Dr. Richard Barwell, and this is the BrainTrust group for the Neurologically Based Chiropractic. We are speaking to a very important person, and I'm very, very tickled with this person, Dr. Ella Ressler. Now, we've got a history. We've got a history to go all the way back to when you were at Logan Chiropractic College and a student catching on to chiropractic. There's some interesting things that happened there. How long have you been in practice now?
Well, I graduated from Logan in 2014, so it's going into my year 4 now, which is crazy to think of. So I've been in my own practice for just over 3 years now. But I go back to the Neurology Club at Logan with Dr. Barwell. So it's been a journey.
It has, and boy, what has happened with you? And I know that you graduated and you went into practice with another client of ours, and you were there for how long?
About for a year. I was there for a year, and I learned a lot, and it was a great experience. And then I decided to spread my wings and start my own practice.
And how's it gone from there?
Pretty good. I'm pretty good. Loving life, loving what I do. I had just mentioned before that I was just running numbers for 2017, and I found that my PVA was 43. So right now I've been very happy about a PVA of 43 in my second year in practice, and loving the results. That's the biggest thing really too, of course, is that as a chiropractor, you know, we want to get people better. We want to see them really experience their full potential. And I'm seeing that in so many more ways than I could ever imagine even a few years ago. So it's been really, really awesome.
Well, you started out completely differently than most graduates start out, because jeepers, you had the concept of neurological from day one, because we were there and we started that neurology club at Logan, and you were part of that, and the neurology professor jumped on board with it. What happened to you at college when you started to explore this neurology base?
It really opened a huge world for me. My past life was aerospace engineering, and that's what I actually started going to school for. So I'm a big dork to the T, really, and so I'm very analytical in the same way. And while I saw amazing results with chiropractic, I really had big questions in my head. You know, how does this work? Right? So we're seeing great results, but some of the explanations weren't really physiologically making sense. And so I was struggling a little bit, because I wanted to understand more about how chiropractic worked, and how can we maximize that too, right? Because to make sure that we can get the best that we can out of our adjustment, we need to truly understand what we're doing. And so really getting immersed into that functional neurology and the NeuroInfiniti and how it applies to chiropractic was huge, because it started to really match those missing links that I had and piece those together. And I thought, we've got something here, right? This is chiropractic, right? This is really what we can do, and this is how we can maximize our potential for patients, right? It's a bummer when you have patients that come in and say, you know, I've been seeing a chiropractor for years and I have the same things that I did when I came in. And it's like, oh, then what are we missing, right? As a profession. And I feel that, you know, by using the NeuroInfiniti, it really, and learning about it, really started to link that together and get the results that I thought we could. You know, so
you had an opportunity for some coaching along the way, because Dr. Pat Kieran happens to be related to you. And he was involved in this from the beginning with the neurologically based chiropractic. So how did that, and has there been any other coaching that you've been involved in that sort of has furthered this neurological approach?
Definitely. So yes, first off, I am the redheaded stepchild of Dr. Pat Kieran. So he really, of course, started my journey in chiropractic by seeing the results in his office. And, you know, he's been a huge mentor of mine. I can't speak highly enough of what he's done for me. I know that really my success is huge in part for the education and the mentoring he's done for me. I can call him up whenever and help him out. So of course that's close and dear to my heart for that reason. But also have been had great results in the last 4 months now, coaching with Dr. Steve Hoffman as well. And he's really grasped this neurologically based chiropractic idea and really helped me expand my practice already more than I thought. You know, I'm hitting goals already that I'm putting forth, and you know, we're talking about, you know, those big plans that we have. Because personally for me, you know, in the last few months, I thought, you know what, I'm playing too small, right? We have way too big of a need out there in our society right now for good healthcare. And time for a lot of us to step up, and for myself, that's one of the goals I have, is to step up. And Dr. Steve Hoffman has been huge.
Fantastic. Now, what about technique approaches?
Yeah, definitely as well. Corn-specific technique has been a baby of mine. I've also recently learned MC squared, but the big technique that I use for the most part of my practice is KST. Dr. Ted Corn really amazed me from my science-based, mind, because when I met him, one of the first things I thought is, you know what, if this guy was told this is something that's going to work better than what you're doing, he would drop it in a hand, in a heartbeat and say, let's do that then. If it's going to work better, then let's do that. Yeah. And for me, that's huge, right? Like for all of us, right, is that we want to do the best. And seeing that through his technique and the results has been really great.
I have to say this about Dr. Ted. He is one of the courageous technique masters who said, okay, let's see what the NeuroInfiniti says about when I do a corn-specific technique. And so we verified that corn-specific technique directly alters brain function. We've done some amazing things with Dr. Ted showing what happens with it. So my hat's off to Dr. Ted, and also my hat's off to Pat Kieran, because I know that he's not only helped you, the man is incredible. He's always there for people. You ask for help and he's there. He deserves a medal. So instruments you've used in the profession, have you used X-ray? And so you used it at school, so that was a start there. But how's that progressed?
Yeah, I used X-rays in school. I really haven't since so much though. If a patient comes in and has those red flags that I may need to do an X-ray or send them off for advanced imaging, I would. I've had a few cases where advanced imaging was warranted, but because of the work that we're doing and the scan and technology that we have in the NeuroInfiniti, I'm really confident that I don't need to, X-ray or get advanced imaging on my patients. And they also get it because not many of my patients talk about bones with me, which I think is really unique. And I think part of that is because I don't talk about bones very much either, and it's rare that we need to look at them in imaging in my office.
Yeah, when your intent is the nervous system, you talk about the nervous system. If you're talking about bones, you've changed the intent of your care, and that's all people hear. So that's one of the toughest messages we have to get through to various people. So what's been the biggest challenge that you would say in starting a practice?
So the biggest challenge, actually, I was thinking about this before, and I really think is just, as ironic as it may be, it's just with staff and dealing with my growth, which is, maybe a unique thing for a new chiropractor to say. But, in terms of retention, I feel like I've really been doing well with that. I'm getting a lot of new patients in the doors. I'm really not doing any outside marketing anymore. I haven't really in a year now. It's all referral based. So that's huge, of course, so that I don't have to stress about that. I can spend my weekends with my family and not at expos or doing events for new patients. And, it really, I find that it's just about really maintaining that and really finding, how I can support my office growth the best with staff and with implementation of different strategies that way.
People have to be paying attention to what you're saying because you're not someone that's been in practice for 25 years. This is the beginning of a practice, and you've got a PVA of 45?
43, yeah.
43 in your second year. That's unheard of. You've got to understand that. So there's obviously no problem with retention in your practice. You're getting people that are seeing what you have to offer and seeing it on an ongoing basis. It's not like you take one patient and you book it 45 times.
Right. Yeah. No, not at all. I'm not seeing them that often.
So right off the bat, we have no issues then with compliance. People are obviously staying on board. And because you have good compliance, good PVA, your income has got to be stable. So there's a big answer. I mean, people get the wrong focus on this to begin with when they focus everything on new patients. Like, how many new patients would you be seeing in a month?
For me right now, this month there will be 9 new patients, but some months there may be like 4, right? So it can fluctuate, but it's really retention that keeps my numbers up. I'm not as focused on huge new patient numbers because I don't need to be, I don't find right now.
So all the people out there need to listen to this. You know, the number of new patients is an average number of new patients. You don't need to go and get these programs and get 2,500 new patients into your office, of which 3 stay. You know, that's the baloney that goes on out there. So and you don't advertise outside. It's all referral. And obviously those people that are coming in and not talking about bones and joints, are referring other people that come to you with that aspect that it's neurological, not bones and joints.
Yeah.
So your retention level starts to go up like crazy.
It does. And one thing that stands out to me from other practices that I've seen before is that sometimes patients come in and I've heard them they'll say, you know, I'll stick it out for a few weeks, see if this works. And one of my patients actually said this to me on Monday, and it struck me. And she said, well, you know, I'm so glad to be getting these results. And honestly, when I started, I just thought, you know what, I'll give it 6 months. I'll give her 6 months. And if I don't see anything, then, you know, maybe then I'll decide that this isn't for me. And I thought, gosh, you know, 6 months that she was willing to wait, right? Just because she understood this is brain-based. This isn't about, you know, 4 visits that we've got to get them out of everything they've ever experienced in their 40 years of life. So that to me really stood out, that I thought, gosh, you know, one, I'm thankful that she's going to stay much longer than that now. But also that was what she committed to just based off of my exam and my report, which is, you know, huge.
What a difference between the concept that most of chiropractors are faced with patients that come in, they want one adjustment and they don't want to pay for it. You've got a different setup, completely going, all based on what your intent was to begin with. That's
totally, yeah.
So important. Okay, when you first heard about NBC, now let's face it, you were at Logan Chiropractic College and you were learning traditional chiropractic with vertebrae and vertebral subluxation and so-called bone on nerve. I mean, that was the education system, even though we weren't sure what a vertebral subluxation was, right? Right. When you first heard about the neurologically based chiropractic approach, what was your impression? What happened?
It was just kind of the cliche answer to the prayers, you know, or to my prayers, in sense of, this is it, you know, this is what is going to allow me to really grasp and become the chiropractor I know I could become, because I'm one of those patients that probably wouldn't come into your office if you were talking about going out of place, because I would think, well, this doesn't physiologically make sense, right? You can't, you know, is that a dislocation, right? Or what are you pressure on it, right? So there wasn't enough really understanding behind that for me to think, you know, this is something I would do. So I oftentimes come from that standpoint as a patient too, is that I understand the skepticism. You know, as any good scientist, right, you need to be skeptic and you need to be also curious. And I think that's a big play of that, is that the neurologically based chiropractic was like, okay, this, you know, this is sound science. This is, you know, this is what we're talking about here. And to understand it better too is so key. You know, especially as a profession, I think that if we really want to see longevity, we have to step it up and really make sure that we are providing the information that folks are looking for in terms of scientifically based care. That's the standard today. And unfortunately, as chiropractors, we are held to a higher standard. Folks expect us to, you know, to know it all, and much more than they may their medical doctor counterparts, which is unfortunate. But I think unfortunately it is the reality. And so we can't play small, and we can't just, you know, just do the bare minimum. We need to make sure we're doing the best of the best that's out there.
How do you make that transition when the patient is coming in for pain and they've got the typical attitude that they're there because of their pain? What is it you say or do that makes that transition with that patient?
So one of the first things is, you know, I'll talk about their pain, right? I'll hear them, right? Because we want to make sure that we hear them, what they're talking about. And then I'll start talking to them about, you know, maybe when they were younger, right? When you maybe fell down the stairs, right? And as a kid, right, what do we know about kids? They bounce right back up, right? So why are they not bouncing back up, right? Why are they now in a state where they're in pain, right? Why is their body not healing something that it previously had? And then that opens up that aha moment for them, and they think, well, right, we're not talking about a strained muscle or a sprained muscle. We're talking about the fact of why at this age they're not performing like they did at a younger age, right? Same body parts, everything, you know, nothing's been removed. And so it's just the idea of that stress, right? And so then I explain to them, it's because your body's not healing, and that's what we want you to do. is to heal better. A lot of my patients, once they've been coming in for a while, what I'll tell them is, after you're shoveling the snow here in Maine, as a Mainer, we all shovel a lot of snow. My older patients will feel that sometimes, but what I want to make sure is that it recovers faster, right? We shouldn't really see that they're hurting for days and weeks after shoveling, but that recovery time is much better. And I think that's really where the focus is for me, is not looking at, we're removing pain, we're just letting your body actually heal like it should be in terms of the pain response and healing that body at its optimal level.
One of the things that Dr. Bob Hoffman loves to say, and I love this, he asks people, where do you hold your stress? Everybody knows they got stress. Well, where do you hold it? How does it show up? And I think that's such an incredible question to ask people, because I go like, well, I get headaches, or, my back locks up. Wow. So it's not your back, it's something else. It's the nervous system response to the stress level. So now this was a little different, because when you went into practice with another chiropractor who had already been established for many years and had her way of doing it in her system. Great person, by the way. I love her dearly. And you went in with this whole new concept in there and shifted her. And I loved one of the comments that when you went on your own, she missed you terribly. But she said, well, I've learned something, that once you've changed to neurologically based, you can't go back. And it's true, because it's the only thing that makes sense. So, when you were in that office situation, what did you say to her that made her sort of stop and take a look? Because she was doing traditional work. Chiropractic works, we get good results, but that major shift to that neurological approach, what was it?
I think a lot of it really came down to adjusting style, is that we both were using techniques with instruments and looking at, something a little bit deeper about that and how that works, and understanding it greater as well. And I also, for me, it played such a valuable place for me to understand a patient care. Because for me, it was kind of like I couldn't go back either. I had been exposed to NeuroInfiniti in school, and I couldn't go back. And so I was also, really moved by the fact that, hey, you know what, I could be doing better if we had this technology. And, she was open and willing to work with that, and willing to learn something new, which is huge. I think a lot of times people can coast, and she was willing to step her game up as well, right? Play big, which was really great. And so that was, I think, the biggest thing, was just saying, hey, I think we could do better, and just having someone open to that and willing to, try that is big.
And it's an important part. So now we get the NeuroInfinitis in your office, okay? And you do the scan. Now you've got the report. How do you take that report? One of the things we hear with people that don't know what this is all about, the chiropractor, they look at the report and they go like, oh, it's too much, too complicated. Number one, do you find it that way? Do the patients find it that way? How do you translate that report for the patient?
So I think, we all can have our own personal styles of this, but I think that who makes it more complicated is us, right? It's like, for me personally, I'll say that I get really excited about it, and I want to, share more than they care about, because I find it so fascinating. But it also has to, you kind of meet them where they're at. And a lot of times I just summarize it, right? And I use the analogy that I think you use often, which is the EKG, right? When someone has an EKG done, does their doctor come in and give them every detail about the QRST wave, right? No, right? That would make no sense. And so I think that it's not about having them understand every small bit of it, but really giving them that overall gist and saying, hey, you know what? Your body is stuck on that gas pedal, right? It's not recovering. Or, and vice versa for an ADD or ADHD person, when you're trying to focus, your brain checks out. And showing that on the graph for them, showing the left hemisphere versus the right, and having them see, wow, these aren't the same, right? And what is that doing to your health? And of course they say, well, it can't be good, right? And so I think that's the big thing, is just boiling it down to that simplicity, and knowing that you don't have to show them every little blip on the report, and keep it basic, and they're going to understand, right? If they were to understand the entire exam, well, we'd have to send them to chiropractic school, right? We'd have to send them to NeuroInfiniti training. So I think it's just understanding that it is about keeping it simple, right?
Now, you've used some other things. There's obviously the biofeedback and neurofeedback. Are you using that in your office as well?
I am. The biofeedback, especially deep belly breathing, heart rate variability, so big for folks' health that is a big portion of that. Also, in general, what's really neat is I'm exploring that more now. I definitely am implementing it more than I used to, which is good. And it's getting staff on board, right? Bringing them to trainings, getting them, hands-on, because as a doctor, you shouldn't be running the scans, right? You should be able to really have them support you in that way. So it's really something that I think can make a huge benefit and can be fairly simple in integration into the office, which I'm very glad that I have. Especially if anyone sees scoliosis patients. I was just talking with another doc the other day about that, and they asked recommendations. And any chiropractor that's seeing a patient with scoliosis should have biofeedback in their office, right? Retraining and doing SEMG biofeedback is huge. And then of course the brainwave patterns and neurofeedback, it's a whole nother way to elevate your care.
Yeah, we found out with the information from Heidi Havoc about that, and I've mentioned this before, that the 20-minute window after the adjustment where that brain is most susceptible to build new neural pathways. And what we've been doing is just sending people back into their chaos and wondering, why they don't get better. And now we have that opportunity to retrain the brain. It was, BJ did the 20-minute rest period, actually after 2 hours after the adjustment, and found that worked. The guy was onto this, but he just didn't have all the information we have today. So being able to do the neurofeedback and biofeedback during that time period after, which is also an income generator for the practice. Gee, every practice doesn't want more money. Of course they do. They render a service and they get paid for it. So the next thing is that you've added something else. I think there's also a BrainTap you're using in your office, which I endorse. We've tested it. We know it works. I love Dr. Porter's work. I want to comment on that at all?
Oh, of course. That's another, a big piece, especially when talking about the 20-minute window. I'm glad you brought that up because that's the driver for so many of these things. It really makes a huge difference with patients if they do BrainTap after their adjustments, but also they can purchase them for at-home use, right? So you're also getting them to have something at home that can be easily used to reinforce the work that you're doing in the office. And they love it because on top of the brain training that it does, the guided meditation that Dr. Porter has created it's amazing to having folks really shift that inner voice, right? We all have this inner voice in our head that can be good or bad. And I think that can be a harder thing for chiropractors to work with, right? How do we get folks to think more positively and knowing how it affects their health? We know they should be. And that's where BrainTap, really comes in for a lot of my patients. And I've been blown away with a lot of the success with that. So it's great technology.
We've been working with him for over 10 years and we fit together so well. People using the BrainTap without doing the NeuroInfiniti can run into a problem where if they get into somebody that is under aroused and they're using the BrainTap to slow people down when they're already too slow. Not a good idea. So that's why he loves what we do and I love what he does as well. So it's great stuff. And now you've added one more thing. And this is interesting because when I was in practice, we used it not at the level you're using now, but we used a sense of smell because we found out there was something very important about it. It did reinforce the impact, but we found out now that it's even more than that, that now we know that sense of smell actually changes brain wiring. And so you want to talk about what you're doing to increase that?
Yeah, it's really essential oils, right? So it's a big name today, and they are just been huge as another layer of care that I offer my patients. And I love when Dr. Steve Hoffman talks about that layering of care, which I think is really important. And so, those essential oils are another layer of that. And so during every adjustment, patients get essential oils to smell because we know the brain learns best when we stimulate multiple senses. So let's make sure we're stimulating all that, we are, or all that we can. And so that's what those essential oils really do. And also there's therapeutic benefits, right? Frankincense is going to increase oxygen to the brain, right? What brain doesn't need more oxygen, right? To that extent. So, really a really cool way to elevate care even higher. And also they, really can help with brainwave patterns. I have had folks, I create essential oil protocols for some patients, and I found that they get better even faster with essential oils. So it's just really amazing to see how we can really maximize patient outcomes by just understanding the neurology of their nervous system, so that we know, is their brain over aroused? Is it under aroused? What's the best essential oil for that? What's the best brain tap session for that? Should we do neurofeedback? Should we do biofeedback? What's the best chiropractic adjustment, right? Because that's the foundation of it all, right? We can't forget that. And so, that all of that together, it really is, it's amazing of what the results we can get with it.
You missed the last session when at the training, when they used it on me. We did a lifetime session, and Dr. Pat put some frankincense under my nose. I had no idea what was coming. Was essential, and what the changes in the brainwave pattern were phenomenal when he put that under my nose. It was just, that's how powerful this is, and that's something that, if you're neurologically based as a chiropractor, and we all think we are, even though that sort of ended at C1. Now we know that we truly deal with brain therapy. That's our forte and our strength. Then it behooves you to learn as much as you can about the power of chiropractic to change those brainwave patterns, and then how to reinforce that. So that's what we see happening. And when you do that, look what happens. 45 PBA in your second year of practice, and you're off and rolling, and you've got referrals only coming in. You've got a practice that people that have been in practice for 30, 40 years would love to have. And that's the crime for the profession, is that everybody should be doing what you're doing. And if they were, there isn't enough chiropractors. That's the bottom line on this. Well, we've really covered some bases in here, but I want to just open this up and say, I know that your perception of chiropractic got changed when you were at school, so some of those questions that I would normally have to ask somebody doesn't apply to you. It was there. But if you're talking to a class at Logan, and you're telling them about the future and what they need to be doing, what are you going to tell them?
You know what? Without a doubt, the future is the brain. Modern medicine is showing that, and we have the unique ability to lead that forefront of changing brain patterns, brainwave patterns, and really improving physiological responses to stress and to the outside world. And it's such an exciting time to be a chiropractor because of that. And I think that that's a great motivation for these kids and students to go forward with, because you really can change lives with chiropractic. But when you add that brain-based model, there's never a dull moment in practice. I can see patients with trichotillomania. I see a lot of patients with anxiety, and I see results with all of that. And what a cool profession to be in, that is leading the charge and doing it naturally and, in a very proactive way that really is going to make the whole world a lot better place. And so I think that the biggest point to take away is that we can lead the future. It really is just up to us to step up and do that. And the power is in our hands.
Wow. Chambers. That's incredible. And I've enjoyed our time from college all the way through, and watching you grow and learn and take off. And you are the leader of the future. And that's what made me so excited about having this interview with you. I love the work you're doing. I love your energy. I would say that there's one thing about you that really reflects your success is your confidence. You know who you are, you know what you bring to the table, and nothing's going to stop you. And that's the key to success. And congratulations. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add, but if you do, now's the time.
I think that you covered it all. And I think it's an exciting time to be a chiropractor. And I just want to thank you, of course, too, for all the work that you've done for chiropractic as well. And I think that, it means a lot to hear you say such nice things to me. And I try to take them in. I'm getting better with compliments. But I think that it's because I've stood on the shoulders of giants, as they say. So, thank you for all that you do and continue to do as well.
Well, as you know, we do have an RV, and so somewhere down the road we'll be seeing you, I know for sure. And I want to say thank you for your time today. This has been excellent.